Should be. Let me see again. Alright, it should be back up. It disconnected. It did a disconnect. Oh my god. Oh my god. Cat. Never mind. Maybe. Cat! Cat! Good god, what a terrible idea, girl. A terrible, terrible idea. Well, bro, I'm like defenseless here. I can't go anywhere. Okay, well, she's in the sack now. Yeah,
Okay,
but she ran away. She ran away.
Well, did you spook her?
She won't run away. No.
She never runs away from me.
She ran away. She did many running away.
I know, I didn't even get to see it.
It was not great. Very frightening.
Come on, friend, let's go sit on top of the coffee pot.
Yeah, let's go do that. Let's go sit atop the coffee pot.
Please.
She got a little bit of freak me out. A little bit of runaway lizard.
She looks really proud of herself.
I bet she is.
You want to see?
Very much like a woman.
Oh, sorry.
Scare the hell out of me.
Little nose nuzzled in her.
Hi, I feel bad. I hope you feel bad.
Thing.
I hope you feel guilty.
Come on, friend, let's
I hope you feel guilty.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Gateway Church lay off staff after 35% drop in tithes amid Robert Morris controversy. This is actually great news. In a sideways way, one of 3 remaining elders at the multi-campus Gateway Church in Texas announced plans to reduce staff amid a 35% drop in giving 5 months after the resignation of founder and former president Robert Morris. Now, wasn't it inappropriate stuff that he did, which is basically what every pastor does now, is inappropriate sexual behavior? It's kind of the norm nowadays. It's good to see these are slowly falling to pieces, though. The sad part is all of the Christians who weren't like super grounded are going to probably walk away from the faith. And it's going to take some work to get them into something that is productive or positive, which is very sad. But the reality of seeing all these megachurches fall is very good. It's a very good thing for the culture. Interesting. Federal prisons blocking faith groups from helping offenders overcome criminal past. Oh. Demanding answers from the FBP, Federal Bureau of Prisons, about why it rejected several offers from faith-based organizations looking to help convicted offenders avoid relapsing into criminal behavior. Maybe because it's a business. Hey, Ghost. Hey there. Yeah, David was here early, man. And he drank too much coffee, and so now he's gone. Department of Education wrongfully denied nonprofit status to Christian University. Ninth Circuit rules. Oh, look at that. How shocking. Mike Pence. Leave it to Mike Pence to make a public fool out of himself. Scripture engaged adults have lower levels of loneliness than Bible disengaged. I guess that's not surprising. That ought to surprise nobody. So weird. Ghost, are you in Nash now? For the holiday? Is that this week? No, it's next week. Okay. Oh, there's David. We thought you got all coffee cracked out and got lost. Chattanooga. For family though, right? For the holidays. 2-week vacay. Oh, wow. Early Thanksgiving before it starts snowing. Yeah, we're just like gritting our teeth waiting for that. Anytime now, where we're at, anytime. Going back on the 24th. Oh. Wait. Is Thanksgiving this week? Am I just like completely tripping right now? No, right? It's next week. It's next week. Early Thanksgiving. You said that. I just ignored it, apparently. I'm with it. Kat said, I rewound the live. Such a good freak out, you poor thing. Yeah, well, she just ran. Kat left me with a lizard in my hands, tied to a desk, with nowhere to go. And the lizard got spooked and started running, and I yelled. So if you missed the beginning of the stream, it might be worth watching the first 30 seconds after we're done. Because I yell like a little girl for Kat to come take care of this lizard. It's the same time as our anniversary, bud. Yeah, I know that. It's not the same day, though. Rodriguez. Didn't one person chain you to that desk? You did. You did. Chain via lizard. Don't try to side skirt this. If you're watching this later, we have a Discord. There's a link to the Discord pinned in the live chat. There's also a link to the Discord in the description of the video. Everything happens there, from learning about the events. We have 3 a week on 2 different YouTube channels. We have theology, the Bible, conspiracy, news, which is always a great time. All the fun stuff, all the stuff you care about, bunch of smart people, yada yada. Come check it out, and I'm sure you will very much enjoy it. We are doing the Canon Sunday nights at 6 p.m. Central Time. That is tonight. So we're in Genesis, and we're doing the entire Bible chronologically, so in actual order. And then Tuesdays, we do a topic discussion on a different YouTube channel, at Tattooed Theist, and that is voted upon every week. So we post a poll in the announcements every week. Everybody votes in the poll, and then that's what we talk about. So this week, we're doing Christians and self-defense or violence. Is it okay? Which is a great topic and heavily trending currently for a bunch of different reasons. So Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Central Time, we're going to talk about that. And then every Thursday night at 6 p.m. Central Time, we do a Bible study again, but it's the Apocrypha or something extra canonical. So right now we are reading the Book of Giants. But this Thursday, we're going to go into old Mesopotamian literature. We're going to read the Epic of Gilgamesh, which I'm very excited about because it's very, very good. All that being said, Genesis tonight, handful of chapters from the end. Just can't talk. Got it. No worries. No worries. I have a feeling it's going to be a slow night anyways. We're in 39 and 40 out of Genesis. Joseph and Potiphar's wife. Let me get this out of my ear so I don't lose my mind. Can't wait for the Epic of Gilgamesh. Yes. It's real good. And I think I found a decent one. I put the link in Discord. I also at some point want to do Enuma Elish. That story too. Because a lot of that would parallel Genesis. But the Epic of Gilgamesh is in Bible study under streams. For anybody who hasn't seen it yet, I put the link to the one that we're going to read in there. So streams, Bible study, the Epic of Gilgamesh, and then I put the PDF link in there. It looks good. I skimmed through it for a while, and I like it. So we're going to do that. But we got to do the creation story from the Mesopotamians too, which I was going through again earlier today. And I just love it. I always have. It really opened my eyes about Genesis pretty dramatically. So we need to try to fit that in at some point too. And it's not very long, so it's not too big of a deal. Joseph and Potiphar's wife. Now Joseph had been brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, had bought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. The Lord was with Joseph. This occurs 4 times in this chapter, in 2, in 3, in 21, and in 23. Repetition in the Bible in general, but the Old Testament for sure, thus far that we've been reading, has been almost entirely to reinforce something in the story. So that means it would be something to remember. It's another good example. I feel like I kind of stopped bringing this up, but I was bringing it up a lot in the beginning of Genesis, was whenever the Lord is used in the ESV specifically, it should read Yahweh. If it was being more honest, it would read Yahweh. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man, and he was in the house of his Egyptian master. Joseph was not for the manual labor. This is kind of the indication of that. He was in the house of his Egyptian master. Laborers would have been not in the house, which would be the norm for slaves, which is another thing I guess to point out, is that servant in most of Genesis would be more honestly translated to slave. But slave in later publications of most translations, they've removed it due to cultural pressure to not use the term slaves. But it would be the more accurate description of what they were. In most cases, not always, but in most. So he would not be for the fields. He would be in the house. Meaning that Potiphar, for whatever reason, which we'll learn some later, but for whatever reason thus far, understands that he was set apart in a sense, had a different purpose, had different talents or skills, and would be better off to be working in the house as a house manager of sorts. So he was in the house with his Egyptian master. Graves, what's going on? You're not even really that late. I was late to start because I was screaming about a lizard. Verse 3, his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to succeed in his hands. Saw that the Lord was with him. Although Potiphar likely doesn't know about Yahweh yet in the storyline, Joseph, who would be Joseph's God, different God, Egyptian versus Hebrew, he perceives that Joseph is divinely enabled, which kind of that's from Logos, by the way. It kind of piggybacks off of verse 2, where the author's setting the scene for Joseph to be different, something to be different about him, different purpose, different placement, different reason. 4, so Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him, and he made him the overseer of his house, and put him in charge of all that he had. The Hebrew phrase here from Logos, al-betha, which would be literally rendered over his house, which makes perfect sense. And the remainder of the verse indicates that Joseph oversaw everything owned by Potiphar. So everything. So he's a house manager and kind of the house overlord in a sense, which also insinuates pretty clearly that there was a massive degree of trust, at least to a degree. Verse 5, from the time that he made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. So Yahweh favor to Joseph, the rest kind of get it by default. The blessing of the Lord was on all that he had, in house and in field. A lot of clarification going on by the author. 6, so he left all that he had in Joseph's charge, and because of him, he had no concern about anything but the food he ate, which is important for later in the story. The ending of the story, it circles back, which is one of the things you got to love about the Bible. And one of the things that makes you wonder, or confirms in a sense, that not all is written exactly how it was. There are theatrics, there's intentional literary strategies that are used, and this is one of them. So remember that he had no concern about anything other than the food that he ate, because it will come back. Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance. This is also important, because this is something you'll see throughout a number of places in the Old Testament, is physical aesthetic appearance when described about a male in the Old Testament, as well as some other literature outside of the Bible. These men tend to have hard times for whatever reason. So then one of the things you got to wonder, did God use them for a reason? Were they chosen for a reason, being that they were attractive to be able to engage and accomplish more? Or is this a literary thing after the fact, where the authors make the main characters, in a sense, aesthetically pleasing, makes them attractive? Makes them hot. Don't know. Uh-oh. Okay, I lost connection, so hopefully it came back. It says it did. So he's attractive. Setting the stage, whether you know it or not, subliminally, because of many things we know from the Old Testament altogether, guy's going to have trouble. And after a time, his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph and said, "Lie with me." I want to read this. In addition to the issue of adultery, having sexual relations with the wife or concubine of one's superior was viewed as usurpation of power. There's another example in 2 Samuel 3:7. Sex with Potiphar's wife would constitute an attempt to gain control over his master's property and would likely have led to Joseph's execution. Verse 8. But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Behold, because of me, my master has no concern about anything in the house, and he has put everything that he has in my charge. He is not greater in this house than I am, nor has he kept back anything from me except you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" He doesn't say against Potiphar. He kind of explains it in the beginning, but then specifies he doesn't want to sin against God. Verse 10, and as she spoke to Joseph day after day, he would not listen to her, to lie beside her, or to be with her, which is an interesting distinction. Because not only is, at this point at least, he's refusing to sleep with her, but now he's also refusing to be around her, is the way that it's reading. Refuses to lie with her or to be with her, which you can't blame him, because that's kind of trouble. When in that type of situation with the power dynamic, and you refuse to do the thing with the person, it's kind of a dangerous game, being in their presence at that point. But one day, when he went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house were there in the house, she caught him by the garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garments in her hand and fled and got out of the house. And as soon as she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and had fled out of the house, she called to the men of her household and said to them, "See, he has brought among us a Hebrew to laugh at us. He came into me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice." Potiphar's wife, she doesn't seem genuinely upset. It seems a little bit staged. Something, I guess, to remember would be that if she were caught doing this too, she would also, at the very least, be punished and divorced. But she could have come to a similar fate as he would have, with being put out completely. It was a pretty heavy offense. Since the author, though, makes it relatively clear that some of the servants were in the house at the time of what was happening, she wouldn't want to be caught doing this either. So she's flipping it on him. Now, whether she planned to do that from the very beginning, or whether she's kind of going off the cuff now that she's holding the garment in the hand, either way, she's going to flip the scenario so that she is not to be seen at fault. So she calls to the men of the household. And as soon as they heard that I lifted up my voice and cried out, he left his garment beside me and fled and got out of the house. Then she laid up his garment by her until his master came home. There's loyalty of both the accused and the accuser. Joseph has Potiphar's best interest. He made that pretty clear with his first pushback to her, and seemingly has for many years, because he's been with Potiphar for a long time now, and he's over everything in the house. So there, like I said earlier, there's trust there to whatever degree. Potiphar's wife views her husband as no more than the master of slaves like Joseph. So she does not have respect or high regard for her husband, and Joseph seemingly does. She was scorned. And she told him the same story, saying, "The Hebrew servant," which would be slave, actually, "the Hebrew slave whom you have brought among us, came into me to laugh at me. But as soon as I lifted up my voice and cried, he left his garments beside me and fled out of the house." As soon as his master, heard the words that his wife spoke to him, "This is the way your servant treated me," his anger was kindled. It does not specify who he's angry at. It just says that he is angered. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was there in the prison. So in addition to the issue of adultery, having sexual relationships with the wife or concubine of a superior obviously would have been a very, very negative thing. However, let me get this. This is interesting. Joseph's punishment is distinctly Egyptian. Incarceration is attested to in Egyptian documents, but does not appear in other ancient Near Eastern law codes, which I found was true. This was something I at least didn't remember, but I don't know if I ever knew this. I looked into it a bit. It seems during related time period, there isn't much to be found in that area of culture about imprisonment. There were different ways and means of conveying punishment. It seemed to be pretty specific to the Egyptians that did the whole prison thing, which is just interesting. Fun facts. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. The Hebrew word used here for steadfast love, chesed, often refers to general kindness. When used in context for providential favor regarding Israel and the descendants of Abraham, it indicates a love that is due to loyalty to the divine covenant promise. So contextually specific here. And gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. The keeper of the prison paid no attention to anything that was in Joseph's charge because the Lord was with him. And whatever he did, the Lord made it succeed. One sec. Joseph interprets two prisoners' dreams. Sometime after this, the cupbearer of the king of Egypt and his baker committed an offense against their lord, the king of Egypt. I want to read this. While the time frame is not specified here, later chronological references allow for a reconstruction. 2 years elapsed before Pharaoh had the dream that he calls upon Joseph to interpret. Joseph is 30 years old when Pharaoh elevates him to high office, which immediately follows his successful dream interpretation. As a result, Joseph was probably around 28 years old when he entered prison. This means he served Potiphar for roughly 11 years. The puzzle comes together, which if you run through all of those individually, makes sense. Verse 2, and Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker. For Pharaoh, great house. That's what it would mean in Egyptian. In Egyptian records, this term is not used of Egypt's king until the 15th century BC, and is not paired with the personal name of the king as a title until roughly the 10th century BC. This means that it is probably supplied here by a later writer or editor. I just want to point that out because I always find those interesting, and they form as a proof of concept. They act as a proof of concept for a lot of the things that we talk about. So Pharaoh would not have been there. We know this because there is a lot of evidence to support that it would not have been written that way. So it was most likely added by a later editor or a later writer because this was not something that they did. It wouldn't have made sense until much later in history to do so. The chief cupbearer and the chief baker. The chief cupbearer. This would be a palace official who served Pharaoh's wine and oversaw his drinking needs. Since this position offered regular opportunities to poison the king, the chief cupbearer had to be highly trustworthy. The chief baker, a palace official in charge of the Pharaoh's food, so all the same. High trust necessary because it is a high risk position for the king or the Pharaoh. And he put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard appointed Joseph to be with them, and he attended to them. They continued for some time in custody. And one night, they both dreamed. the cupbearer, and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison, each his own dream, and each dream with its own interpretation, kind of highlighting, again, what has been drilled into your brain as the reader of Genesis. Dreams were significant, extremely significant, for a number of reasons. The primary being it was a primary means of communication from the divine to the human. So they both dreamed dreams. When Joseph came to them in the morning, he saw that they were troubled. So he asked Joseph's officers, who were with him in custody in his master's house, why are your faces downcast today? They said to him, we have had dreams, and there is no one to interpret them. And Joseph said to them, do not interpretations belong to God? Please tell them to me. So the chief cupbearer told his dream to Joseph and said to him, in my dream, there was a vine before me, and on the vine there were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, its blossoms shot forth, and the clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. Then Joseph said to him, this is its interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your office, and you shall place Pharaoh's cup in his hand as formerly, when you were his cupbearer. The Hebrew phrase, will lift up your head. Hebrew phrase used here is common idiom for showing favor or pardoning someone. We'll come back to that. So he'll be restored. The cupbearer be restored. That's the interpretation. He will be restored back to his position, handing the cup as he formerly did. Verse 14. Only remember me when it is well with you, and please do me the kindness to mention me to Pharaoh. And so get me out of this house, for I was indeed stolen out of the land of the Hebrews. And here also I have done nothing that they should put me into this pit. Joseph is asking the cupbearer to remember him when he is restored back to his position, because Joseph is confident that will happen because that's how he interpreted the dream. So when the cupbearer goes back to Pharaoh, Joseph's like, please, put a good word in for me so I can get the hell out of here. Because he would be considered, the cupbearer would be considered, not at fault, not a criminal. And therefore his trust will be restored. The assumption from Joseph, obviously, like the Pharaoh will listen to him. So I'll be able to get the hell out of here. Then in 15 it said, for I indeed was stolen out of the land of the Hebrews, or kidnapped, depending on translation. It indicates Joseph's contempt for the circumstances of his arrival in Egypt, which is obvious and makes perfect sense. Or his shame regarding being sold into slavery by his brothers, which would also make sense. It doesn't make too much of a difference. They can both definitely be true. The land of the Hebrews probably alludes to the place where the Hebrews have been dwelling, which would have been Canaan for the most part. The areas of Hebron specifically. 16. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was favorable, he said to Joseph, I also had a dream. Brother, can you do me too? There were 3 cake baskets on my head, and in the uppermost basket there were all sorts of baked foods for Pharaoh. But the birds were eating it out of the basket on my head. And Joseph answered and said, this is its interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days, and in 3 days Pharaoh will lift up your head from you and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat your flesh. Takes a savage turn. One guy got good news, the other guy got completely destroyed. Joseph repeats the same type of interpretation in a sense, but this time negative. Unlike the cupbearer, this guy will not be restored. He will have his head lifted up like the cupbearer, but so that his head can be taken. The being eaten by birds, this is where context and hermeneutics really matter. Egyptians in history, and from what I understand, Egyptians still today, are extremely geared towards the preservation of the body. Like, this is where mummies come from. Super important because of what they believe about the afterlife. So for Joseph to say his fate would be to be eaten, not preserved, head taken and then eaten the flesh from him after being hung out on a tree was especially culturally brutal for an Egyptian to hear, because it goes against everything they believe is okay post-mortem. So wild stuff. Very not great from a cultural standpoint. Verse 20, on the third day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he made a feast for all his servants and lifted up the head of his chief cupbearer and the head of the chief baker among his servants. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him, because Joseph had asked him, when you go back to Pharaoh, like I'm telling you, you will, because I know what's going to happen, will you please put a good word in to get me out of here? And so the author is making clear that he did not. He did not remember, which I find very hard to believe, just from a realistic point of view. I find it very unlikely that that's the truth. Seems the more logical conclusion would be that he chose to not do it, and probably out of fear. If you just get your position back after being in prison and threatening to die, you might just let it go. Go back to your position and keep your mouth shut for a while, would be my assumption. It's quiet night, so we burn through. That is all. So unless the few of you that are here, y'all got anything, I'll hang out for a bit, and then we can just wrap it early tonight. Just a recap, I suppose, while I wait to see if y'all have anything on your minds. Tuesday, we are doing Christians and self-defense. So is self-defense okay? Is violence okay? I've done the same thing that I'm going to do from here forward. I put together like a slideshow with some data, some questions, things like that, and then just let the conversation go where it goes. So Christians and self-defense and violence on Tuesday. Thursday, we're going to read the Epic of Gilgamesh, which the PDF is in the live streams, Bible study, Epic of Gilgamesh. And let me just pull this. This is, this is the one. So N.K. Sanders has some illustrations, which I liked. I thought that'd be good. Some map action, things like that. But I skimmed through it. I used AI to pull some stuff from it. And from everything I saw, I was happy. It looked good to me. So this will probably, realistically, depending on conversation, it'll take us a few weeks. So maybe 2 or 3 weeks before we get back. It also has a glossary of names, which was great. So as we read, I'll probably have this open in a second tab, and I can just use the search function to, as names pop up, we'll pull this up parallel and get a description so we can all kind of learn the characters and have a better grip on the story. But it's good. It was free. So yeah, I think it's perfect for what we're doing. And then when we're done with this, we will just bounce back to the Book of Giants and then roll with that. But I'm excited. It's very, very good. And then I do want to read, though, Enuma Elish, which is their creation story. I think some of you, at least some of you, would find it pretty interesting. Some of the parallels. Or maybe at some point we just do, I'll make synopsi. I'll make a synopsis for like the 3 or 4 major cultures around the time of Genesis, like the time period, not the writing of it. And maybe we'll do a really clean, concise cross study of all of the relevant creation stories and try to identify the similarities and differences. Because that's what I did for a thesis in seminary, and it blew my mind. It changed everything for me. I've been listening in the background, but haven't been paying super close attention. I don't blame you, bro. It seems like a very slow night. I don't know what it is, but it's not just you. You're good, and you're with family, dude. I'm surprised you're here at all. I don't blame you. Even if nobody shows up to these, I'm just going to sit here and read because it's good for me. So no worries if it's quiet. Y'all are hopefully doing stuff that matters. It's very good. It's very good. I'll try to be more available Tuesday night. No, if you can, dude. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. This stuff's not super important. And I would do it. I'm going to do it either way. So whether it's quiet or loud, we are square. It's the holidays, man. Like the end of November, the end of December, it's going to be slow. It's going to be slow. So maybe I'll try to curate things appropriately for that. But either way, I'll just read. I'll come on and read. I'll hang out, I'll talk to myself like I am right now. And I'll have a grand old time. And then whoever watches it later, and otherwise we see you next week, you know. Trying to troubleshoot Windows 11. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. What's the problem? I'm pretty good with the computer, I would say. Just not with the fancy stuff the kids are doing. Not good with that. If you need me in the shell, though, bro, I got you. If you need some old school HTML written for a web page, I got you. The minute we start getting into Python and C+ and stuff, I'm out. But if you need a good old HTML script, I can jam you one out in a hot ass minute. Grave says, I'm at work, just chilling with my client. What do you do? Because I feel like you did that a couple weeks ago too. Hanging out with the client with the live stream in the background. Tell your client to come on. Get in the Discord voice. I'll talk to your client. I'll tell them how great you are. I'll sell more of whatever it is you're selling. Can I ask something on Discord? Are you in there? Or do you mean in the chat? The Discord voice is open. You are not there, my friend. There you are. Yeah, here. You're in, but you're muted.
Okay, yeah, my bad. I have a question, and it's kind of going back a little bit. I'm not trying to bring up the whole thing with Dinah or anything, but it's my understanding because I forget who it was. Was it Reuben and Simeon? The brothers who helped her out.
Levi?
Huh? Yeah. No. Was it Levi?
Yeah.
Levi. Yeah.
Yeah. Out of 34. Yeah.
I think that God removed them, right, as one of the 12 tribes as a consequence. And I feel bad because I haven't been around the last couple of Sundays, but I meant to ask about that.
What do you mean remove them?
So I think later on when the 12 tribes are mentioned in the New Testament and they're listed out and named, they were removed. Did you hear about that?
I mean, we'd have to pull it up, but not off the top of my head, no. I mean, I know God seemed to disapprove of what they had done and seen it as kind of an impulsive way to seek vengeance. Which is kind of ironic considering some of the things Yahweh does in the Old Testament. But beside the point, the tribe of Simeon is omitted from the blessing of Moses in Deuteronomy 33 because Jacob had criticized Simeon in Genesis 49. Simeon's tribe is also given only a few cities in Judah's territory. The tribe of Judah eventually absorbs the Simeonites and they disappear from history. So that would be Simeon. And then for Levi, what I got here, Moses, a son of Levi, meditates the old covenant and God chooses the Levites to be his priests. This seems unrelated, actually, now that I'm reading it. The Simeon bit seems to be at least tied to what you're alluding to, right?
Yeah, and that's something that's always kind of messed with me. I'm trying to see if there's...
Where in the New Testament are you talking about? So I can pull that.
I'm not too sure. I'm tempted to say when the 12 tribes are mentioned, in Revelation or something, or... that's why I'm trying to... Let me see.
I'm trying. The tribe of Simeon is once again listed among the 12 tribes of Israel in Revelation 7:7.
Is that what it is?
That's what just, initial search. Yeah, but it says the book of Revelation, particularly in Revelation 7:7, Simeon is listed as one of the 12 tribes of Israel, meaning that the tribe of Simeon is included among the 12 tribes mentioned when describing the sealed people from each tribe. This signifies that even though the tribe of Simeon was historically considered smaller and sometimes assimilated with Judah, it is still recognized as part of the larger group of Israelites in the heavenly vision presented in Revelation. So does that mean they were brought back then? Because they were omitted from the blessing of Moses in Deuteronomy 33. I guess those
And
aren't
that was before though.
Right, yeah. But so I was trying to make a connection. But I mean, the blessing of
Right.
Moses doesn't necessarily mean like they're out. It just like indicates it's got a negative connotation. But yeah, in Revelation 7, I don't know. I want to read the rest of it for sure. But just
Yeah.
here it's saying
just
that they
something-
were included.
Okay.
I'll read the rest when we're done. I'll read 7 entirely.
Yeah.
So just like the premise though for you is that you think that their removal or lack of blessing, all that stuff is based upon how they reacted over the sister.
I'm curious.
I think that's an interesting theory. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be super surprised. So then I would wonder if we could find anything else that they specifically did. It looks like specifically Simeon. If it was punishment, it seems like he, for whatever reason, is kind of getting singled out with the punishment.
Is he the firstborn?
I don't remember.
Or is
I'd
it
have to look.
Reuben? Okay.
No, yeah. No, Reuben was firstborn.
Okay.
But I guess my question then would be like, what else? Can we find any other reasons for why they would have been
Those two.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Specific.
if you can't, then I think it's at least like a fair theory. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it makes me sad. And I just have more questions for God,
Right, because it seems like divine justice. No,
I would say so.
I would too. Yeah.
Or they effed around and found out. So.
Yeah. No, you and I are in agreement on that one. Don't worry, I will always be her as I love the free coffee and donuts. Judging by your scream, the lizard must be as big as an alligator. Well, now I feel like a little girl. The lizard is like not that big, but she's fast. She's fast. The beginning of the stream, Kat left me with the lizard in my hands, and then she left. And the lizard tried to run, so I was yelling and screaming for her to come back.
Oh, that's fun. I'll have to rewind it.
Yeah, it was a great time. Great time. But I'm glad. That's interesting. I'm gonna look when we're done because now I'm curious.
Yeah.
I think it's a fair theory. I want to know now if I can find anything else that Levi or Simeon had done, or even that their line had done, that could maybe justify them being left out. And if not, it's an interesting theory.
Even if they are lying, though, I don't want to get into it or present a whole argument and make people justify lying, but there's other parts of scripture where lying is permitted and different things like that.
Yeah, there are.
Like even in Kings, it talks about a lying spirit, and
it seems to be heavily circumstantial, which is not good when you're trying to find a relative norm for morality.
Unless it has something to do with like dishonoring your father, like I know you could get stoned for that shit.
Right.
Then.
So circumstantial. That's the problem.
That's questions. Yeah.
That's what makes it so difficult. And then you have the deity doing things that he tells you not to do, which is an easier argument of like, well, you're not God, so you don't get to function like that. But it's difficult. The whole question of morality is difficult until you make the new covenant happen. And then upon the new covenant, morality becomes wildly consistent and very clear. But you still have to factor in the old.
Yeah. Maybe they didn't do any sacrifices for atonement because they weren't sorry. I don't know.
Oh, for Simeon and Levi?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm interested. So I'm going to look when we're done. I'm going to spend a few minutes to look because I'm curious. It's an interesting thought that I definitely would not have thought of. And now I'm curious. Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. If you find something too, put it in Discord.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Under the Bible section part, right?
Yeah, for sure. If you do, tag me too, because I'm genuinely curious.
Okay. Sounds good.
Cool. Anybody, anything else? Otherwise, we're gonna call it a night. On Tuesday, we're gonna talk about self-defense and stand your ground. And we got Old Testament, New Testament, and then I tried to kind of take both angles. So some ideas or arguments for those in favor of violence as Christians, and some of the biblical defense stances for those who are not in favor of violence or self-defense from a Christian perspective, to be fair. And then we'll kind of go from there.
Wait, are we talking like theocracy type stuff?
No,
or
no,
just
no. Just general self-defense. Like
Okay.
you walk into my house with a gun,
Right.
whether I know you're going to hurt my family or not. Can I take
Right.
you out? Yeah.
Right.
If we have time, we can touch on some of that too. But I kind of see that as a different, like we could do a whole hour on that.
Yeah. So this is more like personal.
More or less. Yeah. More or less. But like generalized too. Societal, self-defense, war, I guess you could say. In general.
Yeah.
It's
Did you hear about
broad.
Did you hear about the guy? I think it's one of like the most haunted places in America. It's over like in Northern California. I forget the whole story, but basically he's the guy who kind of like really changed war by creating ammo. And
Oh. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And like he thinks that it was like all these dead soldiers that had died because in huge numbers it was his fault and he felt, I don't know, convicted or something. So
Yeah, no, I do what I knew what you're talking about.
that makes me think too. But then
It's
I
a
don't know.
complicated topic. It's a complicated topic. And to be like frank without going into anything, so we have it for Tuesday, but like the Bible is not clear on it at all. There's a lot that you could argue either side with. It's one that there are decent arguments from either end.
I'm more interested to kind of sit back and listen on this one. I know what I'm going to say probably sounds sexist, but I just kind of feel like as a woman, like I'm created to make life, and that's my instinct to like protect and help heal and different things like that. So,
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
So I'm just gonna.
Well, just see, because I think that's a good perspective, because I would guess from knowing the people in this group, most of us will probably agree with you, but from the other side, unless you're saying because of that you don't think men should be able to fight either, like to defend.
No,
then you
I
might
don't
get
think-
pushback.
No, I don't think that.
I didn't
at
think
all.
so, based on conversations you and I have had.
Yeah,
in the
and I
past.
think even I probably maybe I shouldn't say it because I don't know the scripture, but from what I remember, I know we talked about fasting in the past, but I think way back in the day, part of the way that the Israelites fought war was like the men would literally go out for war, and then the women would stay home and like fast and pray,
Right.
and that was
Yeah.
their part in warfare, I guess. So
Which is a huge part. Things like that get
Yeah.
downplayed, and it aggravates the hell out of me. There's no playing down like the support that comes from that. That's like saying prayer. It's the equivalent of people saying prayer doesn't matter, which they would not say in a sentence on its own, but they'll insinuate it based on other things they say, like that women don't play a part in war if they're praying and taking care of children, and not like oftentimes they're putting together the things of war for the men to go take.
right.
I don't know, but yeah, well, I hope you're there, because I would like to get
When is it?
your perspective.
Tuesday?
Tuesday at 7 p.m. And I might be moving it to. Oh, you're earlier, huh?
Yeah. What is
Okay.
it right now? What time is it right now for you guys?
6:51.
Okay, it's 4:51.
Good God.
So
I
I know
okay.
that's why I'm always cooking or something. When you guys
I
are
know.
doing-
I might keep it then. I know, because we do Tuesday and Thursday. We do at 6 p.m. Central Time. I'm sorry. Sunday and Thursday we do at 6 p.m. Central Time. Tuesday we've been doing at 7 p.m. Central Time.
You can do that. So that would be like right now, right? 5:00.
Yeah, we'd be going into it right now. So then I'll probably keep that one there, at least for now.
Yeah.
For the West Coast people.
Right. All of one of me. Yeah.
All of one of you for now.
I think so. Yeah.
For now, I think it is just you at the moment. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. If you can, that'd be cool, because I think it would be
Yeah.
interesting to get your perspective, especially on some of the scriptural stuff, because you are you're pretty in it and educated. So I'd be curious. Joe freaking out. I hate all of you. We are not friends anymore at all. I disown each and every individual one of you. I have to go watch it now, though, because I bet I do look like just a total jackass. With that, I'm out. Have a lovely night. I'll see you guys Tuesday for Christians and self-defense. I love y'all very much. And please don't clip me screaming from the beginning of the video. Love you, love you.
Bye, you guys. Love you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.